The research ship floated quietly in the darkness of space. It was a small ship, built for science and not for war. The crew of 12 people had been traveling for 6 months, studying stars and collecting rocks from asteroids. It was boring work, but Captain Park liked it that way. She was 42 years old and had spent most of her life in space. She enjoyed the quiet. On that morning, stood on the bridge and watched her crew work. Lieutenant sat at the communications desk, listening to the empty static of deep space. Doctor was in the lab below, looking at samples through her microscope. Everyone was calm. Everyone was safe. Then the alarm started screaming. Jumped from his chair. His face went white as he stared at his screen. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking, "I am reading 3 large objects. They just appeared from nowhere. They are big, very big." Walked to his station and looked at the readings. Her heart stopped. Each ship was at least 50 times larger than the. They were not human ships. They were not any ship she had ever seen before. "All hands to the bridge," she said into the speaker. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "This is not a drill." The crew gathered quickly. They were scientists mostly, not soldiers. Doctor came up from the lab, still holding a data pad. Engineer wiped oil from his hands. Navigator Song looked at the screen and covered her mouth with her hand. The alien ships moved closer. They were dark and covered in sharp angles like giant insects made of metal. As they approached, they received a signal. It was not words. It was more like a feeling pushed into their minds. The message was simple and cold. "Do not run. You belong to us now." "Boarding craft are launching," reported. His voice cracked. 6 of them. They will reach us in 8 minutes. Looked at her crew. These were her people. She had eaten meals with them, celebrated birthdays with them, listened to their stories about home. She could not save them. She knew this. They had no weapons, no shields, no way to run fast enough. But she could do one thing. "Everyone listen to me," she said. "We cannot fight. We cannot escape. But Earth needs to know what happened here today. I am going to activate the emergency beacon." The room went silent. Everyone knew what the emergency beacon was. It was a special signal that would reach Earth instantly, no matter how far away they were. It had never been used before. It was only meant for the worst moment, the final moment. Wiped tears from his eyes. "Captain, even if you send the signal, no one can reach us in time. We are 97 light years from the nearest base." "I know," said softly, "but they will know. They will know what happened. They will know who did this, and they will know where to find them." She walked to the control panel. Her finger hovered over a red button behind a glass cover. She broke the glass and pressed it down hard. Somewhere across the impossible distance of space, a light began to blink on Earth. The next few minutes were chaos. The alien boarding craft attached to them with a terrible grinding sound. Metal screamed as they cut through the hull. Cold air rushed in. Strange soldiers poured through the holes they had made. They were tall, taller than humans, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no expression. Their eyes were like black stones. The crew did not fight. What could they do? Doctor tried to run and was knocked down with a single blow. Engineer raised his hands in surrender and was grabbed roughly by 2 soldiers. One by one, they were bound with glowing chains and dragged toward the boarding craft. Was the last one taken? A soldier hit her above the eye and blood ran down her face, but she did not cry out. She did not beg. She looked back at her ship one final time. That was broken now, floating dead in space. But the beacon was still sending. The little light was still blinking. They dragged her onto the alien ship. The inside was dark and smelled like metal and something else, something wrong. She was thrown into a cell with her crew. Doctor was crying quietly, was holding his broken arm against his chest. Song stared at nothing, her eyes empty. "Where are they taking us?" someone whispered. Did not know, but she knew one thing for certain. Earth had received her message. Earth knew. Far away on the blue planet called home, it was early morning in the city of Seoul. Admiral Lee was drinking his coffee when his phone rang. He answered it and listened. His coffee cup fell from his hand and shattered on the floor. In the great command center beneath the mountains, a light was blinking, a light that had never blinked before. Officers gathered around it, staring. Some of them did not even know what it was. "What does it mean?" a young officer asked. An old general looked at the screen. His face was gray. "It means one of our ships is gone," he said. "It means our people have been taken." He took a deep breath. "It means everything is about to change." And in the cold darkness of space, the drifted alone, empty and broken. But her beacon kept sending its message across the stars. A message that said, "We are here. We are hurting. Please come." Humanity had received its first wound from the galaxy. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when you made humanity bleed. Admiral Lee had not slept in 2 days. He sat in the great meeting room under the mountains of Korea, surrounded by the most powerful people on Earth. President sat at the head of the table. Her face was tired, but her eyes were sharp. Around her sat generals, scientists, and leaders from every nation. On the wall, a large screen showed the last image from the. It was Captain Park's face, frozen in the moment before everything went dark. Blood was running down her forehead. Her eyes showed no fear, only anger. "We have confirmed the signal," Admiral Lee said to the room. "There was attacked 17 hours ago. All 12 crew members were taken alive. The ship was destroyed." "Who attacked them?" President asked. A young woman stood up. Her name was, and she worked in the intelligence department. She had spent the last 2 days searching every database, every old record, every signal humanity had ever received from space. "We believe they are called the," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "We have found mention of them in ancient signals from dead civilizations. They are old, very old. They have been traveling through space for at least 3,000 years. "What do they want?" a general asked. Swallowed hard. "Slaves," she said. "They take people from other planets and use them for work. They have done this to dozens of species. No one has ever fought back successfully." The room went silent. President closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Our best guess is 40,000 warships," answered. "Maybe more." "And how many do we have?" Admiral Lee spoke up. 800 combat ships, 3,000 civilian ships that could be changed into warships. But even with all of them, we are nothing compared to their fleet. A man named Han stood up. He was a council member from the European region, a careful man who always thought before he spoke. "So what are you saying, Admiral? That we do nothing, that we accept this and move on?" "No," Admiral Lee said firmly. I am saying we are outmatched, but I am not saying we give up." He pressed a button and the screen changed. It showed factories, shipyards, training centers. Plans and numbers filled the display. "We build," he continued. "We build more ships than they think possible. We train more soldiers than they can imagine. We turn every factory on Earth, on Luna, on Mars into a machine of war. We do not stop until we have enough ships to drown them in metal." "That could take years," Han said. "Yes," Admiral Lee agreed. "Maybe 2 years, maybe 3, but our people are still alive out there. Every day we wait is another day they suffer, but every day we build is another day closer to bringing them home." President looked around the table. She saw fear on some faces. She saw doubt on others, but she also saw anger. The same anger she felt burning in her own heart. "I have a daughter," she said softly. "She serves on a survey ship near Alpha. When I saw Captain Park's face on that screen, I saw my daughter. I saw all of our children." She stood up. "We cannot let this stand. If we do nothing, we are telling the galaxy that human lives do not matter, that anyone can take our people and we will just accept it." She looked at Admiral Lee. "You have my full support. Mobilize everything, every ship, every factory, every person who can work. We will show the what happens when you hurt humanity." The vote was quick. Every nation agreed. For the first time in history, Earth was united in a single purpose. The next morning, the factories began to change. Places that once made cars now made ship parts. Places that once made phones now made weapons. Schools closed early so that young people could train. Old soldiers came out of retirement to teach them. Admiral Lee worked day and night. He barely ate. He barely slept. On his desk he kept a picture of the crew. 12 faces looking back at him. 12 reasons to keep going. His assistant, a young officer named Song Minyu, brought him coffee one night. "Admiral," he said carefully, "some people are saying this is crazy, that we cannot beat an empire that has lasted 3,000 years. Admiral Lee took the coffee and looked out the window. Below, he could see the shipyard working through the night. Sparks flew like stars as workers built the first of many new warships. "Maybe they are right," he said. "Maybe we cannot win, but those 12 people did nothing wrong. They were scientists studying rocks. They were peaceful, and someone came and took them like they were animals." He turned to look at Minyu. "What kind of species would we be if we did nothing?" Minyu nodded slowly. "What should I tell the people who doubt?" Admiral Lee smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Tell them to look at that picture. Tell them those could be their families, their friends, their children. Then ask them if they still want to do nothing." Across Earth, the message spread. People saw Captain Park's face. They heard about the 12 taken crew members. They imagined their own loved ones in chains on an alien ship. And something changed in humanity. Something woke up. Volunteers flooded the recruitment centers. Scientists worked around the clock to design better weapons. Engineers found ways to build ships faster than anyone thought possible. Old enemies forgot their anger and worked side by side. They had been harvesting species for 3,000 years. They had never failed. They had never worried. They did not know that somewhere in the galaxy, a small blue planet was turning itself into a weapon. They did not know that the 12 people they had taken were not just captives. They were the match that would set the galaxy on fire. The small ship moved through enemy space like a ghost. It had no name painted on its side. Its lights were dark. Its engines made almost no sound. The crew called it after the simple fish cake sold on Korean streets. The captain had a strange sense of humor. Commander Shin sat in the pilot's seat, watching the scanner with tired eyes. She had been hunting for 8 months. 8 months of hiding. 8 months of fear. 8 months of following the trail of the creatures who had taken her people. Her crew was small, only 6 people. Pilot O sat beside her, his hands always ready on the controls. Behind them, the others worked in silence. They knew the danger. One wrong move and they would be found, and if they were found, there would be no rescue. "I have something," said their scanner operator, a woman named Bay. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Signals, strong ones. There is a station nearby." Felt her heart beat faster. They had found pieces of the trail before. Ships moving through space. Transmissions that mentioned human captives, but they had never found where the crew was being held. "Show me," she said. The screen lit up with a map. A large station floated in orbit around a dead planet. Around it moved 20 warships, circling like sharks. The station was huge, covered in towers and docking bays. "That is a holding station," said quietly. "They keep their captives there before sending them to work camps." Looked at her, his face was pale. "We have to go closer," he said. It was not a question. Nodded. "We have to know if our people are there." They crept closer over the next 3 days. They moved only when patrols were far away. They hid behind asteroids and in the shadows of dead moons. Every moment felt like a year. Finally, they were close enough to scan the station, worked her machines while the others held their breath. "I found them," she said, her voice cracked. "Human life signs, 12 of them. They are in a special section, separate from the other prisoners. Closed her eyes. After 8 months she had found them. Captain Park and her crew were alive. But being alive was not the same as being safe. Over the next week, the Watched recorded everything: the patrol routes of the warships, the guard rotations on the station, the weak points in the defenses. Every piece of information would be needed when the rescue came. She also saw things that made her sick. They treated their prisoners like animals. They packed them into small cells. They fed them barely enough to survive. They used them for experiments, testing how much pain different species could feel. Watched through her scanner and felt her hands shake with anger. On the 7th day, she saw something that broke her heart. A young officer was bored. He walked into the human section with 2 guards. He pointed at one of the prisoners. Doctor, the kind scientist who had spent her life studying rocks and stars. The guards dragged her to a room. Could not hear what happened, but she could see through the scanner. She saw the instruments. She saw Doctor's body jerk and twist. She saw her mouth open in screams that had no sound. The torture lasted 4 hours. When it was done, they threw Doctor back into her cell. She did not move for a long time. Recorded all of it. Her hands were steady even though tears ran down her face. "We have to go," said gently. "We have enough information. If we stay longer, we will be caught." Knew he was right. She had done her job. She had found the prisoners. She had mapped the defenses. She had recorded proof of what they did to captured species. But leaving was the hardest thing she had ever done. "I will come back for you," she whispered to the screen. "I promise." The turned and began its long journey home. It took 2 more months to escape space. 2 months of hiding and running and praying they would not be seen. When they finally reached Earth, went straight to Admiral Lee. She gave him everything: the maps, the patrol schedules, the recordings. "You need to see this," she said. "Everyone needs to see this." That night, the recording of Doctor's torture was broadcast across every human world. 8 billion people watched. They saw the young scientist being hurt for no reason except entertainment. They heard her silent screams. The reaction was immediate. Recruitment centers that had been busy became overflowing. Factories that had been working hard began working harder. People who had been unsure became certain. Admiral Lee stood in front of the cameras. His face was stone. "We have found our people," he said. "We know where they are. We know what is being done to them. And I make this promise to every human being watching: we will bring them home. We will make them pay for every drop of blood they have spilled. And when we are done, the galaxy will know that human lives are not cheap." In her apartment that night, sat alone. She looked at a picture of the crew taken before the mission. 12 smiling faces, people with families and dreams and futures. "Hold on," she said to the picture. "We are coming. Just hold on a little longer." Somewhere across the stars, in a cold cell on an alien station, Captain Park looked up at the ceiling. She did not know that help was coming. She did not know that her people had turned themselves into an army for her sake. But she felt something, a small warmth in her chest, a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had not been forgotten. 2 years after the was taken, humanity came out of its solar system with fire in its eyes. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Unyielding Dawn. It was the largest ship humans had ever built. Around it, thousands of other ships filled the darkness of space. 12,000 warships, each one carrying people who had trained for this moment. Behind them came support ships, medical ships, and transports full of soldiers. Beside Admiral Lee stood Rear Admiral. She was young for her rank, only 35, but she had proven herself in the simulations. Her job was to command the small fighter ships that would swarm around the enemy. "All ships reporting ready," she said. Her voice was calm, but Lee could see her hands trembling slightly. Lee nodded. He looked out at his fleet. 2 years ago, humanity had 800 military ships. Now they had 12,000. Every one of them had been built with anger and love. Anger at the love for the 12 people who had been taken. "Send the signal," Lee said. "We begin." The human fleet jumped into space. They appeared suddenly, like a storm coming from nowhere. Sensors screamed warnings. Messages flew across their communication channels. The Dominion High Command received the news with confusion. Humans, the small new species from the far side of the galaxy, they had only been in space for 2 centuries. They were nothing. They sent 3,000 warships to deal with the problem. It should have been more than enough. The humans were outnumbered and fighting far from home. But they had never fought humans before. Human ships were smaller than ships. The aliens laughed at this. Smaller meant weaker. Smaller meant easier to destroy. They were wrong. The human ships moved like angry bees. They did not fly in straight lines where they could be hit easily. They spun and danced through space, always moving, always attacking. While the big ships tried to turn their heavy weapons, the humans were already behind them, shooting at their engines. Captain Shin, promoted for her spy mission, led one of the attack groups. Her ship, the Red Wing, dove through the enemy formation. Behind her, 50 fighters followed like a blade cutting through water. "Target their command bridges," she ordered. "Take out their eyes." The fighters obeyed. They flew so close to the ships that the big weapons could not aim at them. They fired at windows and sensor arrays and communication dishes. Blind and confused, the ships began crashing into each other. But the humans were taking losses too. A beam cut through a human cruiser, breaking it in half. Escape pods flew out, but not many. Another ship exploded when a torpedo hit its engine room. Admiral Lee watched the battle from his bridge. Every death hurt him. Every lost ship felt like a wound. But he could not stop now. "Press the attack," he ordered. "Do not give them time to think." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, they had lost 2,000 ships. The humans had lost 800. It was not a clean victory, but it was a victory. And the next day, more human ships arrived. They could not understand. Where were these ships coming from? How were there so many? They had destroyed 800 human vessels, but 1,000 new ones appeared. Then another 1,000. The truth was simple. Earth had not stopped building. Luna had not stopped building. Mars had not stopped building. Every factory, every shipyard, every person who could hold a tool was still working. While their fleet fought in space, their people worked on the ground. The High Command began to feel something new, something they had not felt in 3,000 years. Fear. They sent more ships, 10,000 this time. Surely that would be enough to crush these small, angry creatures. The second battle was bigger. It lasted 3 days. Ships burned and broke apart. Bodies floated through space. They pushed hard, and for a while it seemed like they would win. Then Admiral Lee gave an order that changed everything. "All ships," he said, "if you cannot fight, if your weapons are broken, if you have nothing left, I give you permission to ram. Do not let them win. Do not let them take more of our people." They had never seen anything like it. Human ships that should have been running away instead flew straight at them. Captains who had lost their weapons aimed their entire ships at enemy bridges. Pilots with empty guns flew their fighters into hangar bays and exploded. One human captain, a woman named Go, had her ship cut in half by enemy fire. She was dying. Her crew was dying, but her engines still worked. "Sorry I cannot bring you all home," she said into her radio. Then she pushed her broken ship forward, straight into the flagship. The explosion could be seen from 1,000 kilometers away. The fleet pulled back. They had never retreated before. For 3,000 years they had always won, but they had never fought people who would rather die than give up. Admiral Lee watched them go. He was crying. So many had died. So many good people had given everything. Rear Admiral put a hand on his shoulder. "Sir," she said gently, "we need to keep moving. The prisoners are waiting." Lee wiped his eyes. She was right. The battle was not the goal. The goal was 12 people on a station orbiting a dead world. "Set course for the holding station," he said. "It is time to bring our people home." Behind him, the human fleet formed up again. Damaged ships pulled back for repairs. Fresh ships moved forward. They had been fighting for 3 days, but no one was tired. No one wanted to rest. They were so close now. After 2 years of building and training and dying, they were finally close to the people they had come to save. The storm was not over yet, but soon, very soon, it would reach its target. And they would learn the final lesson about humanity. You can hurt them, you can kill them, but you can never make them abandon their own. The station hung in space like a dark spider. 20 warships circled around it, their weapons ready. They knew the humans were coming. They had prepared for this moment. But nothing could prepare them for what happened next. The human fleet appeared suddenly, coming out of faster-than-light travel in a bright flash of light. There were so many ships that the sensors could not count them all. Thousands of weapons pointed at the station and its defenders. "All fighters launch," Admiral Lee ordered. "Ground teams prepare for drop." From the bellies of the large ships, hundreds of small craft flew out. Fighter ships formed protective groups around the bigger transport ships. The transports were full of Marines, 3,000 soldiers who had trained for 2 years for this one mission. Captain Shin was with them. She had refused to stay behind. She had found these people. She would help save them. "Remember," she said to her team as they approached the station, "the human prisoners are in Section 7. That is our target. Nothing else matters." The warships opened fire. Space filled with beams of light and flying metal. Human ships exploded. Ships exploded. It was chaos and fire everywhere. But the transports kept going. They dove through the battle, protected by the fighters around them. Pilots died so that the Marines could reach the station. It was the price they were willing to pay. The first transport crashed into the station's docking bay. The door blew open and Marines poured out, their weapons firing. The guards were surprised. They had expected the humans to be weak, like the other species they had captured. They were wrong. Sergeant led her team through the dark hallways of the station. She was 28 years old and had memorized every face of the crew. She knew their names, their stories, their families. They were not strangers to her. They were the reason she had joined the military. "Section 7 is this way," she shouted. "Move fast." The fighting was terrible. Soldiers came from every direction. They were bigger than humans with 4 arms and thick armor, but the humans were faster and angrier. They had come too far to fail now. Private took a hit to his shoulder but kept fighting. Corporal Ma dragged a wounded friend to safety while still shooting with one hand. They did not stop. They could not stop. Finally, they reached Section 7. A heavy door blocked their way. Behind it were the human prisoners. "Blow it open," ordered. The explosion was loud. The door fell inward, rushed through with her team, ready to fight more guards. Instead, she found Captain Park standing in front of her crew, her fists raised. She was thin and weak and covered in old wounds, but she was ready to fight. After 2 years as a prisoner, she was still ready to fight. Then she saw the flag on shoulder, the flag of Earth. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "You came," she whispered. "You actually came." Knelt beside her. "Ma'am," she said, her own voice breaking, "did you really think we would not?" The other prisoners came forward. Doctor but alive. Engineer missing 2 fingers but smiling. Navigator Song crying so hard she could not speak. One by one, the Marines helped them up and wrapped them in warm blankets. "Where is Lieutenant?" asked. She had counted only 11 people. His face grew dark. "Died in the first year," she said quietly. "He protected Doctor from a guard. They killed him for it." Nodded. They would find his body. They would bring him home too. "All prisoners secured," she reported into her radio. 11 alive, 1 dead. We are coming out." Getting out was harder than getting in. They knew they were losing their captives. They sent everything they had to stop the humans, but the Marines fought through them like fire burning through dry wood. Captain was waiting at the docking bay with her transport. She saw walking toward her, supported by 2 Marines. Their eyes met. "I saw you," said. "8 months ago, I watched the station. I wanted to save you then, but I could not." Took her hand. "You came back, that is what matters." The transports launched from the station. Behind them, the Marines had left a gift. Dozens of bombs, placed carefully throughout the station. As the last human ship pulled away, the bombs went off. The station broke apart. Piece by piece, it fell into the dead planet below. 3,000 years of cruelty destroyed in minutes. The fleet jumped away before the enemy could respond. They ran for 3 days, always moving, never stopping, until they finally reached safe space. Admiral Lee was waiting when the prisoners came aboard the unyielding Dawn. He stood at attention as Captain walked toward him. She stopped in front of him and tried to salute, but she was too weak. Her arm fell back to her side. Lee did not care. He stepped forward and held her like a father holds a lost child. "Welcome home, Captain," he said. "Welcome home." The war continued for 3 more years. The Dominion, which had ruled for 3,000 years, fell apart under humanity's relentless attack. They could not understand these small, angry creatures who never gave up. They could not match an enemy who fought for love instead of power. When it was finally over, the other species of the galaxy gathered to ask humanity one question. "Why?" they asked. "Why did you risk everything for 12 people?" Admiral Lee, now old and gray, answered for all of humanity. "Because they were ours," he said simply. "And now every species in this galaxy knows, if you take one of us, we will come for them. We will burn down everything you have built. We will not stop until our people are home." He paused and looked at the gathered aliens. "The question is not why we did it. The question is, what would you do for your people?" None of them had an answer. But across the galaxy, in slave camps and prisons, beings of 100 species began to whisper a new word. A word that meant hope. A word that meant someone cared. Human. Captain Park spent the rest of her life teaching young officers. She always started her classes the same way. "You may think you are alone out there in the darkness," she would say. "You may think no one will come for you, but you are wrong. Humanity does not leave its people behind. We came for me. We will come for you, always." And somewhere, the light of this beacon still traveled through space, a message that would never stop. We are here, we are human, and we take care of our own.